Well, thank you for joining us for this webinar today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome to MineConnect. We encourage you to go to our website and member portal to learn more about the organization. We have, to these webinars, we've had about 5 of them now in our Mining Innovation Series, and we welcome people's participation, whether they're current MineConnect members or going to be MineConnect members, and we look forward to working with you. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Tina McGee and Peter Merrick. Tina has been in the financial services industry since 1979, leaving her role as a bank manager to open Junkala Wealth Building in 1999. JWB works with business owners in the areas of succession, estate planning, and the creation of income and capital enhancement solutions. Through a combination of pioneering insights and work experience, they endeavor to help you take your business assets and transform them into personal cash in as tax efficiently a manner as possible. In this session, you'll learn about how to plan and what to avoid and to contain. You'll learn and hear about actual stories and circumstances of business owners who were ill-prepared for the succession of their businesses. As with such sessions, you may send your questions or participate in a Q&A. Which will occur in the end, but in the meantime, you can send in some questions. I would ask that you mute your microphones, please, and without further ado, I'd like to hand the session over to Tina and her associate.
Hello, and thanks so much, Paul. I really appreciate that introduction. Yeah, Junkala Wealth Building has been here in the North since 1999, and we really like helping people with tax-neutral solutions in the succession of their company. And, you know, we can even help out in introductions with finding people to buy your company or help you transition to family. And of course, I always want to thank MineConnect. You're always giving a platform to our members to share their unique crafts so we can do business together and promote one another's business. And Paul, your team at MineConnect has been a real driving force in assisting people doing that. So thank you very much. I'm going to take a minute now and introduce Peter Merrick. Let's start here. Peter is a former professor from Ryerson University. He's been a regular on CTV with financial matters for business owners. He has over 800 published articles on the topic. He is the Director of Education with the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners, which consists of lawyers, accountants, bankers, and specialists in his branch, of course, in San Diego. He's a public speaker that has traveled Canada and US wide, very sought after speaker. Also an author of a fantastic book called The King of Main Street. This is the first time Peter has written a novel, but I'll have to tell you that what he's incorporated into this novel with regards to business succession, legacy, all the planning, it is one of the best business books I've ever read, and participants will receive a free copy of this book. It is with great pleasure that I introduce you to Peter Merrick. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. This is a really great opportunity to speak to everyone at MineConnect. I would like to share my connection with MineConnect. About 15 years ago, I got a call from Tina, and she was telling me about this really great boom that was starting in the North, and it was a great boom. Mining prices had gone up, and home starts were taking off in Sudbury, and I spent many weeks. Do you remember, Tina? Like back in 2007, 2008, and we traveled the North. We went from Sudbury to North Bay up to Timmins, and we did that triangle, and it was wonderful. And I have to share with you, working with all the wonderful people at MineConnect that Tina introduced me to was very wonderful. And I think this is a fantastic organization. I used to write years ago for Northern Miner, was one of the publications I wrote for, so I was very familiar with the work that MineConnect was providing its members. And what I'd like to do right now, because fast forward, this is 14 years later from the last time I really did a lot of work in Northern Ontario, and I was hoping that I could have been up there in October However, we're going to have to wait until the borders open. So I'm very excited for that. A lot's changed, and the main thing that's changed is Canadian business owners are getting older. And right now, starting in 2022, Canada is going to start seeing the largest group of baby boomers retire or be at the age of 65 to retire, because the largest portions of the baby boom happened from 1956 to 1960. So right there, that's going to be the bulk of the baby boomers. And this is where most of the business is. And this is what we're going to be talking about, because as a professor and as a writer, what I discovered when I would do my research, back when I was doing it, there was very, very little written on succession planning, what to do. So over the next 20 minutes, I'd like to thank everyone who's taking a few moments out of their day to listen to what I've learned about succession planning, and perhaps we'll be able to help you make that transition, whether it's to a family member, the key employees, or to third-party buyers, because it doesn't matter who you choose to transition to. Unfortunately, as human beings, I haven't met anybody who's lived forever. We're going to have to transition, and what the people we work with, they want to leave standing up. They don't want to leave having someone roll them out. They want to be captains of their fate. So let's begin, and let's have fun. So what I like calling this is taking hold of your future, a graceful business exit. And that's exactly what it is. Taking control of the next step. Many business owners know how to climb Mount Everest. However, they get stuck on the top and they need a little help to get down. And that's in essence the role that Junkala Wealth provides. And I've been very fortunate over the years to be able to work with Tina and help her clients do that. So the biggest problem that any business owner faces in Canada, and it's possibly going to get worse because the deficits, I've never seen it before. Justin Trudeau topped his father. His deficits are 10 times larger than the largest Trudeau senior deficit. Is that at the end of the day, the reason we all work is we want to have the money to do the things we want to do, and we want to pass it on to our family and to whatever charity we want. The biggest issue that business owners face today in Canada and Ontario specifically is by pulling that money out of their company, they're going to pay anywhere from 26 to 54%. And we're going to be addressing how do you sell your company and a little about how do you actually access that money in the most effective way. Look at that number, $41 trillion of privately held business are going to transition control to either family members, to employees, or to third-party buyers. However, there's a fourth category that I didn't mention. Most of them won't transition. You can look based on history, and again, history is not indicative of what the future is going to be. Only 90% of businesses in the past never transitioned. These are successful, solid businesses. We all remember companies like Eden's. Whoever thought they wouldn't be around? So planning is key. And starting as soon as you can for your eventual transition is what we're going to be talking about. But the question should be, those listening here, how do you know when it's time for you to seriously consider transitioning and when to actually seek help? And also for the advisors who might be listening to this, how will they know to start those conversations with their clients? Because, for example, as I shared with you, one of the biggest issue for business owners at the end is they built a great business. They want to sell it and they want to access all that resources, being the money in the most tax effective way that they possibly can. The issue is when you're young, you throw everything back into your business because you're building it. Then later on, then you want to actually access it. So here are the 5 indicators that we know that I've seen and what my colleagues in business succession and M&A, mergers and acquisitions, have seen to indicate that somebody has built a really solid business. So if you're listening, you've built a solid business, please listen. One is age. What does that mean? Usually around the age of 55 to 70 years old, that's when people get really serious about saying, I just don't want to do this anymore. I want out. The other indicator with age is, let's say someone's been working at the same business now for 20 or more years, and they just say, I'm just too tired, and that leaves us the second one. The second one is fatigue. They're tired. They've been doing this for so long. There's other things on their list that they want to do, and they're not able to get to it because they can't leave their business. And I have to share with you, I worked with an individual who had a very successful business, 38 years working in this business. He was exhausted. He finally got out, and now he's written his third novel. It's something I always wanted to do, but he could never do it. And he had a really great business. It was a phenomenal business. He just didn't know how to get out. And life circumstances forced him out. And thank God he's okay. But he's in remission right now for cancer. And when he had cancer, it was at that point he realized, I got to get out. Now, to his benefit, he had actually done some preparation before. So it wasn't as difficult as many people will find when they do want to transition and they haven't basically been honest with themselves that there's life before you and there'll be life after you. So the question is, what type of legacy are you going to leave before you leave? So we've got fatigue as number 2. Number 3 is money. Why do people start businesses? I had a client. He made porta-tubbies. Am I saying that right? I think I am. You know, toilets that he would put at construction sites. He was doing, I don't know, like $15 million gross. He had like the cheap plastic ones to the beautiful ones that they would have at outdoor weddings that looked like you were in a posh washroom or bathroom or toilet, depending on where you are in the world. And he had a phenomenal business. Who would ever want to get into that business? He got into that business because he saw an opportunity. He worked that opportunity and he made really great money, and he actually took pride in what he did. And he had a phenomenal business. But he did it because he wanted to have a family, he wanted to provide for his family, and he wanted to go and find a way that he could provide great service. And at the end of the day, he did it because it made him his living. So the question is, do you have enough money to transition? Because sometimes you're running so fast, you never look behind you to see what you have. Number 4, the future. So who could have predicted COVID-19, the future? There's a lot of people right now who are saying to themselves that I've survived the first big calamity, or maybe this might be my 15th, but I don't want to do it again. I don't know what the future holds. They would be able to take it to the future. And there might be someone else who sees what I'm doing and can add to it, because if you built such a great business, guess what? You're usually the problem for its growth. So if you have such a great system, your company will do better without you. So the future looks great at someone else's home, or it doesn't look so great and you just don't want to reinvent yourself again. And lastly, partners. Perhaps you have partners, and once you were really great friends, and now you're not, or you see the world differently. I know many partners who started off, they were really great friends, and now they, other than work, they never really have anything to do with each other. So let's recap this before we move on. Age, fatigue, money, and future, and partners. Those are the indicators. And you have to sit down and say, hey, what do I want to do next? What legacy do I want to leave? And do I have enough? And I'll tell you what makes someone, once they've started really questioning things, become just not business owners, but motivated people to transition, is the magic number. And what is the magic number? That's the number that you need to live on your terms for the rest of your life, for your spouse's life, and to provide for those you love and also those causes you care about. And each person, that number is different. And that's why it's really important to sit down and figure out what your number is. Because unfortunately, people don't know what their number is. And if they don't have their number, then they might have to adjust how they want to live. Or they're going to have to make some serious changes within their business. So they'll get that number. And this is an opportunity right now for those of you who are thinking about selling your businesses or transitioning out, and now it might not be such a great time, depending on the industry the individual's in, to prepare to sell. Because if someone wants to sell the business, it's not something they can just do and say, I want to do it. You have to prepare for it. And we're going to be addressing that very quickly and very soon. So here's a situation I've dealt with quite a lot, where an individual wakes up and says, I want to sell my business. And they've done their planning with their financial advisor, their Royal Bank advisor, the mutual fund advisor, and they say, I need a certain amount of money to retire. And they finally go to market, and the business broker turns to the business owner and says, your business is worth X. In this case, your business is worth 10 million. I know that number could be $1 million, it could be 500,000. I wanted to get your attention, so I said 10 million. And the business owner goes to the business broker, he says, get out of here. I sat down with my financial advisor. I need 15. Unfortunately, many business owners, they have lifestyle businesses where they write off everything. And they show very little income. And someone who wants to buy your business, they need to know that this business is going to continue to make money and those numbers are real. So preparation met with opportunity is the most important thing that you can do right now. Create a prospectus. Why wait? Get everything in order. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the professionals that you're going to need to consult once you realize that this is something you want to prepare for. So whom are you going to sell your business to? Well, you got family members. The problem with family members is, do they really have the same drive and passion for your business? Because sometimes giving a business to a family member is giving a ball and chain, because it's not what they want. I've met many people over the years who've taken over businesses they were not passionate for. And think about this. When I give someone a gift, do I feel comfortable to give it to someone else and sell it? Do I feel comfortable in changing it? So that's one group. Second is key people, key managers in your business. If you don't have family members, you have key people who can go and bring it to the next stage. Those are people you might want to groom and create certain types of business, executive plans, buyout plans, all sorts of things so that you can fund your own retirement. Let me share with you what the problem with family members and key managers. When you sell to those people or you give your business to them, you're never left the business and you might never see your money because most likely they don't have the finances. Now, the third group is third-party purchasers. These are either big equity funds, banks, university funds, all sorts of things. They're scouring the world. And right now, there happens to be $5 trillion around the world looking for great companies. Be your competitors, or it can also be your suppliers, or the people you're selling to. These are the people who can buy your company and bring it to the next level. Now, if those people who see the value of adding your service to what they're already providing, they'll even pay a premium. And this is what most people should be aiming for. Not that they shouldn't do transition to key managers or family members, but if they truly want to separate from what they've created and to go on and do something they want to do, maybe play golf, maybe spend time in San Diego with me. I don't play golf, but we can hang out. And this is the best way to do it. And I think it's something that we have to take into consideration when we're looking at family members. Now, when you want to sell your business, you have to have the idea that I want to sell. So what do? Well, again, the biggest issue that most successful business owners have is they have outgrown many of their professionals, even though they're not aware of it. I'll give you a perfect example. I had an individual I met out in Calgary that had a business that was doing $68 million in sale a year. And the accountant they had was a CGA, and it's their CPA. And this person here they had for many years. Well, what happened is this person was really not skilled with dealing with individuals who had gone in that big. And CRA knocked on their door, and this person here had done everything right. However, they didn't know how to deal with this. And they ended up getting terribly audited. They ended up selling their business to their largest client, which they did receive a lot of money for. And I was in shock. They just had an operating company. They did not have any sophistication. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I do know there's certain things when you get to certain sizes you should put in place. And I was in shock. So what's important is to find that point person. And I actually find that many of my clients up north deal with, who find that point person, it's Tina. Because Tina is making sure things are moving. And that's important, because managing the team is important. And that includes accountants, business evaluators, bankers, and we're going to be addressing that in the next slides that are going to come. So let's look at the multidisciplinary approach. This is a chart that was put together by a colleague of mine, Richard Jackham. Richard Jackham, just to share with you a little bit of his history, who I've done a lot of work with in the past and now, has been involved in selling over $5 billion worth of companies. Any companies anywhere from, let's say, 5 million up to 500 million, or the largest company with $1 billion within private equity. And he created something called the Planning Institute, or the Exit Planning Institute, which many people who specialize in exit planning, they actually take their courses and get their training and get their mentorship. And he put together this chart. And this chart here just identifies different skill sets that different professionals will bring to the table when you want to transition. Identifying owners' personal goals, you can see that you've got CPAs, financial advisors, legal advisors, investment bankers, insurance agents. They can all do that. You've got to evaluate business to determine what it's worth. You've got your banker, and you also have your CPA. Develop exit strategies. You got your CPA, you got your legal advisor. You also have your exit planner. So you can just see this, the tax planning. You can see all this. And again, when you go back, this will be posted on the MineConnect website. You'll be able to spend some time with this chart, and you'll be able to see it. But again, this chart's very helpful, because when you're sitting down with your current advisors, ask if they're able to get you to the next stage. I actually joke all the time when someone actually said this to me. He said, "Peter, you're the second spouse." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, the individual has their first spouse who they develop everything with, but they're not able to get them to the next stage." And that's where you come in. Because again, your advisors most likely have been very helpful to get where you are. However, they might not have the skill set, because very, very few of us who do, who can get you to the out, the exit. So let's talk about three examples. About the three examples we talked about: family members, key employees, and third-party buyers. Let's talk about Mike does it right. Transitions to family members. I can talk about this situation because we actually wrote about it in Canadian Business. It was an individual who was the second generation franchisee of McDonald's. His father was the first franchisee because when McDonald's came up to Canada, it was corporate. And his father was the brother-in-law of the gentleman who brought it up to Canada. And he wasn't so good working for the company. And this is all in the article. So to keep the family happy, he gave his brother-in-law a franchise. And when his father was getting older, the son took over the franchise. And in the late 1990s, the oldest child, the daughter, looks at the father and says, I have ketchup in the blood. This is McDonald's, right? And she says, I want to become a franchisee. So what happened is he immediately called his accountant, his bankers, and in McDonald's, you couldn't just transition, you needed permission of McDonald's. So a training program was put in place. They put together really great programs to get her to take over the business, and this is something that she wanted to do. Well, in 2005, she became the first third-generation McDonald's owner in Canada. And I got to share with you, McDonald's, which now has hundreds and hundreds of franchisees across Canada, they turned to Mike, or Ike, I gave his real name now, Ike, and they said, you did everything right. So if you're going to go and transition to a family member, find out if they really have an interest. One of the tests that a good colleague of mine suggests is give a gift to a child who wants to take over. And at the same time, tell them that they can take that money and they can buy shares. Now, if they decide that they want to spend it on a Harley Davidson or a trip to Acapulco, you know that they're not really invested in the company, and maybe you should look at other options, because someone who actually will invest back in the company believes in the future of the company and is also mature enough to become an owner. So that's a suggestion that a friend of mine has made to many, hundreds of thousands of business owners, because he's one of the top speakers on the topic. Number two is Richard makes his employees happy. What happens is, in this case, Richard had a very successful business, very specialized, and he could not sell it to anyone else. So he grew people within his company. He put together special plans, insurance plans, retirement compensation arrangements, everything to help them fund it. And he made the transition. He brought in all the advisors. And at the end of the day, he was able to get paid out for market value for his company, and people who invested in working for him for years took over his business. And he did it right. And lastly, John sells it all and moves on to his next stage. So in John's situation, he had a company that was doing $40 million a year, and he wasn't showing profits. It was a lifestyle business. And John decided he wanted out. So it took about 4 years to go and put everything in place for John that he could sell his business and get top dollar. What happened is his company, we found, was doing about $14 million EBITDA profit a year. He wasn't showing that before we cleaned it up. He sold it to a company that was listed, and there they were trading at 24 times earnings. So if you made $10 million, they $240 million. So in his situation, he sold it at 10 times earning, and they gave him close to, a little, I think he walked out after taxes and everything with about $100 million. But he needed to prepare, and that's the key. And now what he's doing is he loves developing real estate. And this is something he always wanted to do. And now he's got the finances and the wherewithal to do. Plus, his kids weren't interested in his business, but they love real estate. And they're all involved in developing real estate projects now. And he's got the freedom to do that. And he wanted to do that for years. He built an incredible business. But again, he had fatigue, he was tired, and he knew his business could do a lot better without him because he didn't have what it took. And unfortunately, his kids didn't have what it took because he shared with me. He shared that when he started his business, he was the first one in, he was the last one out. His kids started working for his business, and guess what? They were the last ones in and the first ones out. So John did it right. So just in closing, is preparation is what it's all about. And if you are at the point where you meet any of those criteria of age, doing it for too long, fatigue, the future, you've got enough money, or you're not comfortable with your partners, and you just don't want to do it anymore, take action now. You don't have to sell your business. You need to prepare. So when you do sell or you do transition out and you do stop working, you have enough funds and you have the freedom, and you also, the most important thing as I get older, is you got your health, because that's it. And if you're standing right now and you have the ability to listen to me, you have your health, I'm going to tell you, don't think that there's going to be tomorrow, because we're only promised today. And I got to share with you, I speak to business owners who call me up frantically. Tina and I had worked with someone, unfortunately, that they decided they wanted to make this transition. And unfortunately, reality stepped in. Their body had actually made it so that they couldn't do certain things that were available to them if they had done them before. And don't let that be you. So take control of your destiny, like you've already done by building a great business. And as a Canadian, I'm proud that you guys are contributing to Canada being a first world most desirable country in the world. And now it's time to leave a legacy for the next generation to do that and continue this for your kids and your grandkids, and also to give you the ability to do the things you want to do that you haven't been able to do, because each of us are promised only a certain minute, in a day, so many minutes. And if you're spending it doing one thing, those other things that you like to do, you might never get to.
Right. And you know what's so important, Peter, is that succession planning doesn't come at the end of your business. It comes, you have to kind of reverse engineer back. And even as you're, getting started and getting to the mid-range of your business, that's when you have to really successfully look at how you're going to and when you're going to transition out. We had a question I wanted to share with you. And for someone who would like to step down a gear and free up some cash, possibly for another investment, but keep the interest in their corporation, how can we help them with that? How can you help them?
Well, this is really a great question, because many times that when a third party comes in, they don't mind you still maintaining an interest in the business, because that means that you're going to leave it in the best shape as possible. And on top of that, because you know the business, you know the clients, they're going to need help transitioning. So you can come back as an advisor. However, you are not the individual. You are transitioning to other individuals, and now you are becoming an elder to that business. You're not in it, but you are advising to it. And you have your hands in it by, maintaining, instead of owning 100%, you might say, hey, I'd like to keep 10%.
Yeah.
And on top of that, when you do sell your business, there will be a holdback. What I mean by that is, let's say I sold my business for $10 million. The buyer wants to make sure that your business is what you say your business was. So they might say, we're going to hold back 20%. So they give you $8 million up front, and they might wait 6 months to 2 years to give you the additional $2 million. And it really depends. That's where you want to go to an expert like the gentleman, Richard Jackham, I mentioned too, because he's going to make sure that holdback is as little as possible. Because many people, when they decide to get out, they want to get out now. So I hope I've addressed.
What about the business owner that doesn't want to give up control of the company, but wants to start taking chips off the table?
Well, that's also an interesting question, and thank you very much for asking it. There are structures out there that, if you put in place, you will be able to access corporate money, tax exempt, and it's been vetted by the top tax lawyers and tax accountants in the country. So, Paul, do you have any questions?
Well, if I was young and wealthy enough to retire and have a company, Peter, I think that, certainly I would be seeking advice from a multiple of sources. And I guess the only question, where do you start? Who do you start with? Is it your wealth advisor? Is it your investment banker, or is it your accountant? Or maybe your priest? I don't know.
Sometimes it's your priest. And sometimes it's your spouse. And sometimes it's your health. However, what I would suggest, and this is something that people don't realize, is that very few people are actually skilled in this. So you have to search out someone who you're going to appoint as your point person. And this person has to have the skills of understanding all the pieces, how they match. And the reason I say that is because if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So an accountant, most accountants, they're only skilled in being bookkeepers. Most of them, they don't do anything innovative. Most lawyers aren't specialized in this. They do wills, they do wills, and they do, wrongful dismissals and divorces, and do everything. You need to find someone, and this is something where the reason I work with Tina, because Tina has chosen to specialize in that particular field. So she's not offering everything else. You want stocks, you want bonds, you want different types of things. She's not dealing with it. She's only dealing with the exit. And again, you want to appoint someone to be your point person, the quarterback, the person who's going to manage all the relationships, the accountants, the valuators, the business brokers, all these people that you need someone who's going to manage them, because it's like being a GC building a building. And not everyone's skilled at it. A plumber can't build a building. Unfortunately, this is something, Paul, that we mentioned before, I shared with you. Most people, unfortunately, they don't know if their professionals have it. And there's a joke that someone once said to me, which I think is very applicable to your question. What do you call someone who finished second last in medical school 10 years out? Paul, what do you call that?
Go ahead.
Doctor. And you don't know if that's your doctor. And I have to share with you, I shared that story early on in our conversation, that I met this gentleman who was doing a business that was doing in the high 60 millions. And this person kept a high school friend who became a CGA as their accountant. And because they had outgrown that person, but never really given it any thought, and they never knew really how to exit and how to grow the business and how to do holding companies and trusts and do proper tax planning, they ended up placing themselves in such a terrible position. However, that person's not at fault, because that person, unfortunately, never belonged to an organization like MineConnect, who's going to provide different experts who are going to be talking about that way of properly exiting a business. So they're just going to go to the people who are around them. So the key is, there are people out there who specialize in the transition. I use the example that many business owners were great at climbing their Mount Everest. However, they need a Sherpa, one of those guides, to take them down. or they're going to die there. And their bodies, and no one's ever, they're not going to appreciate what they've accomplished, and no one else will either.
That's a great analogy.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Curtis, do you have anything?
Not off the top of my head.
Well, you're learning early in the game, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Never too young to learn.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, I think this has been an immensely educational session, Peter and Tina. We would like to share this with your permission, of course, with MineConnect members and others in the mining-related community. We've seen a lot of people retire in this industry. Many of them very successful. Many of them went on to have long and fruitful and happy retirements. Some not as long as sometimes happens. But you know, I think the solace is in having a retirement plan and having not just a plan in terms of a financial plan, but goals that are a holistic approach to life, so that you leave with a clear conscience, feeling that you've built your empire, divested of it in an efficient and a professional and a proficient manner. And I think the ingredients that you showed us in this presentation are a good formula for bringing that along. So with that, we'll wrap this. We thank you again very much. We will be continuing with a series of webinars on topics that are of interest to people in the mining and the business world. And maybe we'll have you back for a future sequel, and we'll get a few more people on board.
I just want to thank MineConnect once again. It's a terrific organization, and I look forward to helping you grow it.
And I just want to conclude and share that I've only had great experiences working in Northern Ontario. And I'm looking forward to when the borders open and I can actually be face to face.
Look forward to meeting you then, Peter. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
All the best.
Bye, guys.
Bye now.
Great day.